Hey everyone, I just wanted to show you something on this chef's knife that came in for sharpening. So if you look at the blade profile of the chef's knife, there's actually two problems with it. One, you can see this knife has a bolster on it, like this, that extends all the way down to the edge. And you can see that it's been sharpened in the past without reducing the height of the bolster. And so the problem with this is if you're trying to cut something with it, and you're hitting your cutting board, that the bolster back here is going to hit before the edge up here hits. Because since the bolster is sticking down and it's too long, it prevents you from rocking all the way to the back of the knife. So on this particular knife, the edge hits till about here, and then from there to there, the edge does not touch your cutting board at all if you were trying to use this knife. So you can see the problem with this would be is that even if the knife were sharp, it's not going to cut all the way through the food you're trying to cut back there because it's not able to make contact with the board. It's like an arch like this, and so any food underneath there just isn't going to get cut. Now, the second problem with the profile of this knife is even if I were to reduce the bolster, which I'll do in a minute, if we were to let the bolster hang off the end of this, this is just a straightening stick here, but it's flat, so it works for this. If you were to look closely, and I don't know if you can see the light under there or not, but even if I were to let the bolster hang off the end, there's actually still what's called a reverse bow in the blade, where the cutting edge itself is curved like this. So yes, the bolster is sticking out, but even if we took that away, the cutting edge like this is still going like this, which again is due to improper sharpening. So even if all I were to do would be reduce the bolster, we'd still have a problem where it wouldn't make contact with your cutting board and cut all the way through the food. It would be a little bit less of a problem because it's a smaller curve without the bolster there, but it would still be a problem. So to fix this knife, I'm going to reduce the height of the bolster and take out the recurve in the blade and put a proper curve back in the blade, and then we'll sharpen it. Now the other thing we have to be careful of is this knife is taper ground, so it's thickest at the spine and thinnest at the edge. And so as I remove steel to fix the curve of the blade, every time you sharpen a knife like this, you're getting back up into thicker and thicker steel with the edge. Obviously, if you just remove a minimal amount each time you sharpen it, which you should, then that's going to happen gradually, but it will still happen. And each time your knife will get just a little bit thicker at the cutting edge, and it'll be harder to cut through stuff, even if the cutting edge is just as sharp. So when I address the bow in the blade, depending, I will check the blade like this with my fingers to see how it tapers off going to the edge. And I may thin out a little bit behind the edge too when I do that, so that not only do I fix the curve of the blade so that it rocks nicely against the cutting board again, but I fix the taper in the blade so that it still cuts through things easily. So anyway, I'm going to put my mask on and I'll show you how we do this, and then I'll show you the end result. Alright guys, so now you can see I have reduced the height of the bolster, fixed the reverse bow or the recurve in the blade, and a proper blade profile back to the blade. You can see that if I take a flat piece of wood like your cutting board would be, and I rock it against it, that there's no clicking sound like there was originally. And the reason is because now instead of having an arch there where it goes click when it hits the end, that doesn't happen. It's just one smooth curve all the way down to the end, and both ways. So there's no nice clicking sound anymore, which is good. So now if you rock it, it will cut all the way through the food for the entire length of the blade. I didn't do much thinning, but I did do a little bit just behind the edge just to taper everything in nicely so that when you're cutting through food, it will just flow really easily up the side of the blade and the blade won't get caught or stuck in the food like that. And obviously I also sharpened the edge, so you can see it cuts just fine. So anyway, that's pretty much all there is to that. Now, if you were sharpening your own knife like I've showed with water stones and you wanted to reduce the height of the bolster yourself, what I would recommend is either getting a stick and wrapping sandpaper around it and then just holding your knife against a table like that or something, and then just shaping the bolster like that by hand. Or otherwise you can send it into somebody like me, and obviously I have equipment where I can do it, and then also polish it back up so that it pretty much looks like it blends right in with the rest of the blade, and you wouldn't really know anything had been done to it. So anyway, if you have a chef's knife that you need to rock against the board, make sure that you don't have reverse bow. Make sure that you also have your bolster reduced like this if your knife has one. Obviously, if you have a knife, say like this utility knife, that you're not going to rock this against the cutting board, then the reverse bow or the recurve like this one has is fine. And in fact, in this case, this knife came new like that. It was designed into it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a chef's knife, you're going to be using it against the board. Make sure that if you have a full-length bolster, it gets taken up a little bit each time it's sharpened, and make sure that the curve of the blade is maintained and that there's not a recurve put in it. The only side note is some really cheap knives will have a hollow bolster, and those you cannot reduce because if you go to grind it away, you're going to open it up and then get into the hollow handle and water could get in there and it wouldn't really be sanitary. So on those knives, even the chef's knives, there's not really much you can do about it. You just kind of have to live with it and understand that your knife is not going to perform optimally. But for any knife where you can, you should definitely reduce the bolster like that if it's a chef's knife, and that will keep it functioning well.